The day my mom found my husband's feminine side, I'm standing in my living room, completely frozen. My heart is pounding so hard I can hear it in my ears. Adam is beside me, still in full makeup, the cream corset perfectly laced, the chiffon skirt catching the afternoon light. And there, in my doorway, is my mother. Her mouth is slightly open. Her eyes move from me to Adam, then back again, trying to make sense of what she's seeing. The shopping bags in her hands suddenly feel like they weigh 1,000 pounds, because neither of us can move to help her. Adam's hand tightened around mine, just slightly, like he was silently asking, "Are we safe?" "Julie?" Her voice cracks. What is going on here?" My mind is racing. Embarrassment, fear, guilt, all of it crashing over me at once. I had promised Adam I would protect this part of him. I promised him it would be safe, that no one would know until we were ready. And now my own mother is staring directly at the truth we've protected for months. Let me tell you how everything led to this moment. Because looking back now, I realized the truth was always trying to find its way out. My name is Juliet, and the man standing next to me in that frozen moment is Adam. My husband. My partner. The person I love more than I ever thought I could love anyone. We met 4 years ago at a friend's birthday party. He was the quiet one in the corner, nursing a drink and observing everyone with these thoughtful, gentle eyes. When we finally talked, I was struck by how present he was, how he actually listened, how he asked questions that showed he genuinely cared about the answers. I remember our third date, when I had a small panic attack in the cafe bathroom, and he waited outside the door, talking to me softly until I felt grounded again. He didn't make it awkward. He didn't judge. He just stayed, present, patient. That was the day I realized he loved deeply, not loudly. We fell in love slowly, then all at once. He was different from anyone I dated before. Emotionally intelligent, patient, the kind of person who noticed when I was pretending to be okay but wasn't, the kind of person who remembered small details about my day and asked about them later. We got married 2 years ago in a small ceremony, just close friends and family. It was perfect, simple, us. Our life together has been peaceful. We have our routines, our inside jokes, our favorite spots in the apartment where we naturally gravitate. We're a team, a safe bubble in a world that can feel overwhelming. But 3 months ago, something changed. It was a Tuesday night. We'd just finished dinner and were sitting on the couch, one of those comfortable silences between us. But I could feel something different in the air. Adam kept opening his mouth like he wanted to say something, then closing it again. Finally, he spoke. His voice was shaking. He couldn't look at me at first. He told me there was something about himself he'd been hiding, something he'd kept secret from everyone, including me, something he was terrified to share but couldn't keep locked away anymore. And then he told me about his feminine side. He explained that since he was young, he'd felt drawn to femininity. Not all the time, but in moments. In ways he couldn't fully understand or explain. He'd spent years pushing it down, convincing himself it was wrong, that it would go away. But it hadn't. It had only grown stronger, more insistent. He told me about the times he'd tried on clothing in secret, how it made him feel more complete somehow, more honest. He told me about the shame he carried, the fear of judgment, the terror that I would leave him if I knew. I watched him as he spoke. This strong, gentle man I loved was breaking open in front of me, showing me a wound he'd been carrying alone. When he finally looked up at me, his eyes were red and curious. And I told him I loved him. All of him. Every part. I didn't fear the truth he was telling me. I feared what it meant that he had carried it alone for so long. I feared ever giving him a reason to hide again. I told him he was safe with me. That this didn't change how I saw him. That I wanted him to be able to be himself, fully and completely, without fear. The relief on his face in that moment, I'll never forget it. I promised him 2 things that night. I would support him, and I would protect his privacy. This was his journey, his truth to share when and how he chose. We held each other for a long time that night. And I thought I was ready for anything that came next. I thought I was prepared, but I wasn't ready for what happened that Sunday. After Adam opened up to me, we created what we called Soft Sundays. Sunday became our day. The day when Adam could explore this part of himself safely, without judgment, without fear. We'd close the curtains, put on music, and create a space where he could just be. At first, it was simple. He'd wear a dress or a skirt around the apartment. I'd help him with makeup, even though neither of us really knew what we were doing in the beginning. We'd laugh at my terrible contouring attempts. He'd wobble in heels and nearly take out a lamp. But over time, something beautiful happened. These Sundays became sacred to us. They weren't just about clothing or appearance. They were about honesty. About Adam learning to accept himself. About me learning to see him in his fullness. He started to relax into it. The usual tension in his shoulders melted away. He'd laugh more freely. Move differently. There was a lightness to him on those Sundays that I rarely saw during the rest of the week. We developed little rituals. I'd lay out options for him to choose from. He'd spend time in front of the mirror, not in a vain way, but in a discovering way. Like he was meeting parts of himself he'd kept hidden for so long. We'd take pictures sometimes, just for us. Evidence that this version of him existed, that it was real. It wasn't just dress up. It was healing. It was honesty. It was intimacy in a form I'd never experienced before. Those Sundays became the foundation of an even stronger marriage. Once, during one of those Sundays, Adam almost opened the door when someone knocked, just a delivery guy. But the panic in his eyes when he realized what almost happened stayed with me. It reminded me how fragile our little bubble really was. But they also depended on one crucial element: privacy. No one else knew. Not his family, not mine, not our friends. It was our secret, our sanctuary. And I took that responsibility seriously. I made sure doors were locked. I checked calendars obsessively to ensure no surprise visits. I protected our bubble fiercely. Until the Sunday, I didn't. That particular Sunday, I had planned something special. I'd been watching Adam gain more confidence over the weeks, and I wanted to give him something that reflected that growth. Something that said, "I see how far you've come, and I'm proud of you." I'd ordered an outfit I thought he'd love, something elegant, a little daring, a step forward from what he usually wore. I spent the week imagining his reaction, the way his eyes would light up, the way he'd touch the fabric carefully, reverently. I couldn't wait for Sunday to arrive. Sunday morning came bright and clear. Adam was nervous from the moment he woke up. He knew I had something planned, but I hadn't told him what. After breakfast, I led him to our bedroom, where I'd laid everything out on the bed. The outfit was beautiful. A pale cream corset top with delicate lace detailing along the edges. It had a front ribbon tie that created a beautiful focal point, and structured boning that would shape and support. The fabric had a slight sheen to it, subtle but elegant. Paired with it was a layered miniskirt, soft ruffled chiffon that created movement and dimension. But the real statement piece was the train, a cascading, high-low design that flowed dramatically behind. It was romantic, ethereal. I'd also chosen a wig, a short, sleek blonde bob with a center part. The strands were smooth with a natural shine, not costume-like at all. It looked natural, soft, polished, professional. And finally, nude glossy high heels with a pointed toe and slim stiletto heel. Classic, timeless. Adam's hand went to his mouth when he saw it all laid out. He looked at me with these wide, emotional eyes. "This is..." He couldn't finish the sentence. He was quiet for a moment, then pulled me into a tight hug. "Thank you," he whispered, "for seeing me." We started with makeup. I sat him down at my vanity and stood behind him, our reflections side by side in the mirror. I showed him each step as I went, explaining what I was doing and why. Foundation first, smoothing over his skin, evening out his complexion. I could feel him relax under my touch, his breathing slowing down. A soft blush next, just enough to bring warmth to his cheeks. His eyes were closed, trusting me completely. When I finished the eye makeup, subtle but defined, I had him open his eyes and look. The change was immediate. He stared at himself, tilting his head slightly, seeing something shift in his reflection. "I look." He paused, searching for the word. "Different. In a good way." "You look like you," I told him. The wig came next. I'd practiced positioning it earlier in the week to make sure I knew what I was doing. I adjusted it carefully, making sure it sat naturally, tucking his hair underneath, securing it properly. When I stepped back, he turned his head side to side, watching the blonde bob move. He touched it nervously at first, then with growing confidence, running his fingers through the smooth strands. A smile spread across his face, shy at first, then wider. Now for the clothing. I helped him into the corset, standing behind him as I laced it up the back. We'd done corsets before, so he knew the feeling, but this one was more structured, more real. "Tighter?" I asked. "A little," he said. I pulled the ribbon carefully, watching his posture shift, his spine straightening, his shoulders pulling back. "How does it feel?" Like it's holding me together," he said quietly. "In a good way." The skirt came next. I helped him step into it, pulling it up to his waist, adjusting the layers so they fell properly. The chiffon settled around him beautifully, the train pooling behind him on the floor. He turned slowly, watching the fabric move with him, the way it caught the light. Finally, the heels. He sat on the edge of the bed and slipped them on one at a time. When he stood, he wobbled slightly and I reached out to steady him. "Easy," I said, smiling. "You've got this." He took a tentative step, then another. His movements were careful, deliberate. but there was something in his posture that hadn't been there before. Pride. I stepped back to look at him fully. He looked beautiful. Not in a costume way. Not like he was playing dress-up. He looked authentic. Present. Like a version of himself that had always existed, but had finally been given permission to be seen. "What do you think?" I asked. He turned to look at himself in the full-length mirror. For a long moment, he didn't speak. He just stared at his reflection, his hand coming up to his chest, pressing against the corset. When he finally looked at me, there were tears in his eyes. "I think," his voice cracked, "I think this is the closest I've ever felt to myself." We stood there together, just breathing, just being in the moment. And we had no idea that disaster was seconds away. I grabbed my phone and suggested we take some pictures. Adam was hesitant at first, self-conscious, but I encouraged him. "These were for us," I reminded him. "Evidence of this moment. This growth." He started posing, awkwardly at first, trying to figure out how to stand, where to put his hands. I took photos and showed him, and slowly he started to relax into it. This was our safe place, our bubble. Until it wasn't. A knock on the door. We both froze. "That's odd," I said, my stomach already starting to tighten. "We weren't expecting anyone." Adam's face went pale. "Who is it?" "I don't know," I whispered. We stood there, paralyzed, hoping whoever it was would just go away. Another knock, louder this time. Then a voice. "Jolie, surprise!" My mother. My blood turned cold. "Oh my God." I breathed. "It's my mom." Adam's eyes went wide with panic. He looked down at himself, at the outfit, at the heels, as if suddenly remembering what he was wearing. "What do we do?" he whispered urgently. A dozen thoughts slammed into me at once. Lock the door, hide Adam, send my mom away, lie, breathe, think. But my body wouldn't move. I rushed toward the door, my mind racing. Maybe I could get to her before she came in. Maybe I could make up an excuse. Tell her now wasn't a good time, arrange to meet her somewhere else. But before I could reach the door, I heard the handle turn. No, I'd forgotten to lock it. Time slowed down. I watched the door swing open, in what felt like slow motion. My mother stepped in with a warm, excited smile on her face. Shopping bags in her hands, clearly planning to surprise us with something. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd... Her voice trailed off. Her eyes locked on Adam first. Took in the outfit. The makeup. The wig. The heels. Then they moved to me, standing there uselessly in the middle of the room, my phone still in my hand. Then back to Adam. The smile on her face faded into confusion. Then shock. Then something I couldn't quite read. The silence was suffocating. No one moved. No one breathed. I couldn't find words. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. What could I possibly say? Adam stood frozen, his arms at his sides, every muscle in his body tense. I could see him wanting to run, to hide, to disappear. My mother stood in the doorway, still holding her shopping bags, her face cycling through emotions too fast for me to process. Confusion. Surprise. Shock. Something else I couldn't name. She blinked several times, like she was trying to reset her vision, to make sense of what she was seeing. The air felt thick, heavy, like we were all underwater. My stomach was in knots. My mind was flooding with worst-case scenarios. Would she judge him? Would she say something cruel? Would she tell the rest of the family? Would she blame me for supporting this? Would she tell me I was enabling something wrong? I wanted to step in front of Adam, to shield him, but I couldn't move. Adam shifted slightly behind me, his breathing shallow and rapid. I could feel his fear radiating off him in waves. My mother took a step into the apartment and quietly closed the door behind her. The click of the latch felt final, trapping us all in this moment. She set her shopping bags down slowly, deliberately, her eyes never leaving Adam. She opened her mouth to speak, then paused. I had promised to protect him, and now that promise was hanging by a thread, right in front of the woman who raised me. The silence stretched on, unbearable. Finally, she took a breath. But what she did next, it didn't just surprise me. It changed everything I thought I knew about my mother. Her eyes had softened. The shock was still there, but underneath it was something else. Something I didn't expect. She looked at Adam, really looked at him, taking in the full picture. And then she looked at me. The way her expression shifted in that moment, the way her shoulders relaxed just slightly, the way she took a step closer instead of backing away, what she said next, and the conversation that followed completely shattered my expectations. That day was supposed to be just another soft Sunday. Another afternoon in our safe bubble, protecting our secret, honoring this private part of Adam's life. But instead, it became the day our secret stepped into the light. Because identity has a way of revealing itself, even when we try to hide it. The day everything changed, not in the way I feared, but in a way I never could have predicted. My mother stood there for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 10 or 15 seconds. She was looking at Adam with an expression I still couldn't fully read. Her eyes moved from his face to the outfit, taking in every detail, then back to his face again. Adam's breathing was shallow. I could see his hands trembling slightly at his sides. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, to break the silence, to explain, to defend, to apologize. But before I could speak, my mother held up one hand gently. "Wait," she said softly. "Just give me a moment." So we waited. She took a slow breath, then another. She was processing, thinking, and I couldn't tell if that was good or bad. Finally, she looked directly at Adam. "Adam," she said, her voice calm and measured. "Are you okay?" Of all the things I expected her to say, that wasn't one of them. Adam blinked, clearly as surprised as I was. What?" he managed to say. "I'm asking if you're okay," she repeated. "You look terrified right now, and I need to know if you're safe. If you're all right." I felt something shift in my chest. This wasn't the opening to a lecture. This wasn't judgment. This was concern. He nodded slowly, not trusting his voice. My mother's expression softened even more. "Okay," she said. "That's what matters most to me right now." She looked at me then, and I saw something in her face I hadn't seen in years. The same look she used to give me when I was a child and had scraped my knee or lost something important. Maternal. Protective. Present. "Julie, do you mind if I sit down?" she asked. I nodded quickly, gesturing to the couch. She walked over calmly, sat down, and smoothed her hands over her lap. Then she looked up at both of us, still standing frozen in the middle of the room. "Please," she said gently, "sit with me." Adam looked at me with panic in his eyes. I could see the question written across his face. Should I change first? Should I take all of this off? But my mother answered before he could ask. "Adam, you don't need to change," she said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. We're gonna sit here, the three of us, and we're gonna talk like adults." Slowly, carefully, Adam moved to the couch. He sat down gingerly, mindful of the skirt, the train pooling around his feet. I sat beside him, close enough that our shoulders touched. My mother looked at us both, her hands folded in her lap. "I'm going to be honest with you," she began. "I'm shocked. I didn't expect to walk in here and see this today." My stomach tightened. Here it comes, I thought. The disappointment. The judgment. But then she continued. "But I'm also realizing something," she said, her voice steady. "My shock is my problem, not yours. And I need a few minutes to work through that." Adam and I both nodded. She sat quietly for a moment, thinking. I watched her face carefully, trying to understand what was happening behind her eyes. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Softer. More vulnerable. "Can I ask you something, Adam?" He nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes." "How long have you been doing this?" Adam's hands were clasped tightly in his lap. I reached over and covered them with mine, trying to give him strength. "I've felt this way since I was young," he said quietly. "But I've only been able to express it for the past few months. Since I told Juliet." My mother nodded slowly, absorbing his words. "And Juliet?" She turned to me. "You've been helping him with this?" "Yes," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "He told me 3 months ago, and I wanted to support him. This is who he is, Mom. Part of who he is." I was ready to defend him, ready to fight if I needed to, but my mother just nodded again. "I see," she said simply. The silence that followed wasn't hostile, it was thoughtful. "Can I tell you both something?" my mother asked. "Something I've never told anyone?" We both looked at her, confused. She took a deep breath, her eyes distant, like she was reaching back into memory. "When I was younger, in my 20s, I had a friend," she began. Her name was Marie. We worked together at a department store. She was funny, smart, kind. We became close very quickly. I had no idea where this was going. One day, Marie invited me to her apartment. When I got there, I met her partner, someone she introduced as Michael. My mother paused, choosing her words carefully. Adam and I sat perfectly still, listening. Marie and Michael were happy together, my mother continued. But they had to hide. Always. Michael lost jobs when people found out. They had to move several times. The stress of keeping that secret, of living in fear, it took a toll on both of them. Her voice grew quieter. Eventually, Michael broke down. The shame, the isolation, the constant fear of being discovered. It became too much. Tears were streaming down my mother's face now. Marie was destroyed. And I was angry. Angry at a world that would rather push someone to that extreme than just let them be who they were. Angry at myself for not doing more, not understanding more. She looked directly at Adam. I lost Marie's friendship after that. She moved away, and I never saw her again. But I've thought about them both for 40 years. I've thought about how different their lives could have been if the world had been kinder, if people had been willing to understand instead of judge. My mother reached into her purse and pulled out a tissue, dabbing at her eyes. So when I walked in here today and saw you, she said to Adam, my first reaction was shock, yes. But my second reaction was fear. Not fear of you or what you're doing. Fear for you. Fear that you might be carrying the same burden Michael carried. The same emptiness. The same feeling that you have to hide who you are to survive. Adam looks so emotional now too, silent tears running down his cheeks, cutting through his makeup. But then I saw something else. My mother continued. I saw Juliet standing next to you, supporting you, creating a safe space for you. And I realized, you're not alone the way Michael was. You have someone who loves you exactly as you are. She looked at me with such tenderness. And I realized that I have a choice, she said. I can react out of shock and old ideas about how things should be. Or I can react out of love. Out of the lessons I learned from watching Marie and Michael suffer. She turned back to Adam. So here's what I want you to know, she said firmly. You are safe with me. I may not understand everything. I may ask questions that seem ignorant or insensitive because I'm learning. But I will never, ever make you feel like you need to hide this part of yourself from me. Adam's face crumpled. The tears became visible, and he covered his face with his hands. My mother stood up, walked over to him, and without hesitation, pulled him into a hug. You are family, and family means you get to be yourself, all of yourself. I sat there watching my mother hold my husband, and I felt something break open inside me too. I had been so focused on protecting Adam from the world, from judgment, from shame. I had built this fortress around our secret, convinced that exposure would mean disaster. But what I was witnessing wasn't disaster, it was grace. I realized then, maybe the world wasn't as dangerous as we thought. Maybe we weren't as alone as we feared. Thank you, he managed to say. I didn't think. I know, my mother said gently, but I'm here now. And I'm not going anywhere. She sat back down, and we all took a moment to breathe, to let the heaviness of the conversation settle. My mother nodded. That's completely understandable. And that's your choice to make, no one else's. The relief on Adam's face was heavenly. I wasn't sure I believed that, but I appreciated her saying it. For now, my mother said, this stays between us. Your secret is safe with me. My mother stood up, collected her shopping bags. I should go, she said. Give you two some time to process all of this. As she moved toward the door, she stopped and turned back. Adam, that outfit really is beautiful, by the way. The cream color suits you. And then she smiled. A real warm, genuine smile. After my mother left, Adam and I sat on the couch in stunned silence. Finally, he turned to me and said, Did that really just happen? I laughed, the tension finally breaking. I think it did. Your mom is... He paused, searching for the right word. Incredible. She was. She is. That day taught me something profound. I had assumed I knew how people would react. I had built walls based on fear and worst-case scenarios. I had convinced myself that the world, including my own family, wasn't ready to accept this part of Adam. But I was wrong. Sometimes people surprise you. Sometimes they show up with more grace, more love, more understanding than you ever imagined possible. My mother carried her own story, her own pain, her own lessons. And instead of projecting fear onto us, she chose to offer acceptance. Adam still isn't ready to share this part of himself with the world. And that's okay, that's his choice. But now he knows that when he is ready, if he ever is, he won't be as alone as he thought. Neither of us will. If you've ever felt like you had to hide parts of yourself, I want you to know something. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be accepted. You deserve grace. And sometimes, just sometimes, the people who love you will surprise you when you least expect it. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts. Do you like surprises? Let me know in the comment section. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and come back for more stories from the Gender Diary, where truth and identity always find their way out. This is Juliet, and thank you for listening to my story. The end.
The Gender Diary exists to light that path with shared stories. Whether you found connection in this narrative, you're on your own journey of gender exploration, or you're here seeking understanding, your subscription fuels our mission. Every subscriber empowers us to keep illuminating these authentic experiences for our community. Kindly drop a comment below. Your voice adds to the tapestry of experiences that makes this space meaningful. Until our next story unfolds.